Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. This episode, we could have nailed it, but screw it. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help you save time, money, and aggravation. This edition is titled, We Could Have Nailed It, But Screw It, a discussion about tools. To help me explain, I'm here with my ever-cheerful co-host and old buddy, John. John, what's been happening this week?
Hey, Larry. Nice to be here again with you this week. And, well, what's going on this week is we're entering the holiday season now. And what I thought would be a great topic here to talk about is tools, because they make great gifts.
Wow, tools, man. That's a huge,
of
course, very near and dear to our hearts here at the Handyman Pros Radio Show. But tell me about it. This is a big topic. So how are we going to approach this?
Yeah, it is a big topic, and it's a fun topic.
Yeah.
We're going to approach this in a couple of segments, probably 3 segments, and we'll break it down into entry level, intermediate, and advanced. And we'll talk about each one of those categories. And let me kind of define the categories. And that is really, from the entry-level perspective, it's basic hand tools, things you use around the house for, very small projects, fix things around the house, things like that. Not big and comprehensive.
Kind of geared at somebody that might not have tools, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
People that are just starting off.
Yep.
And then we'll talk about intermediate, that kind of category, an intro to, some power tools, building bigger. Oh, yeah. Power tools, right. Baby. Larger projects, those are things like, cordless drills, power saws, all those good things. And then what we'll do is move into the advanced segment, and we'll talk about more specialized tools, tools that save a lot of time, power miter tools, table saws, furniture jigs,
all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, all those kind of things.
Tools is a big subject, man. There's about a bazillion things that I know I want. So, and I have a lot of tools, and I know you do too.
Yep.
So today we're going to talk. What will we do today? Today we're talking about entry level.
Yes.
Okay. So this is kind of geared towards somebody that doesn't have any tools, or is kind of looking maybe to add on some tools into their repertoire, as we like to say.
Yeah. The people that are just starting off, and I always looked at myself when I first got my own apartment or things like that. Maybe my first home, that I really didn't have any tools to speak of, but I needed something quickly to. Hang pictures on the wall, put up curtains, those kind of things. So what would be, I guess we're going to talk about some generalities, but what kind of tools do you think that you need straight away? I mean, if you have to, I guess we should approach this a couple ways. What do we think is really a must-have, and then what kind of money is it going to cost, and what kind of things like that? I think we should approach it that way, and how much usage are you going to get out of it? And then kind of start off with that. What do you think? Yeah, so, the kind of tools that I'm thinking about are, the simple tools, the hammers, the tape measures, screwdrivers.
Got to have a couple wrenches.
Tapes,
adhesives, caulk.
Zip ties.
Ooh, yeah, I like zip
pliers, putty knives, adjustable wrenches, glue, caulk, those kind of things. And that's pretty basic.
Well, let's dive into it.
Okay.
Hammers. Talk to me about a hammer. Let's back up. Talk to me about what your opinion is on on tools in general. So, should you buy the cheapest tools you can find out there? Should you buy the most expensive tools you can find out there? What kind of warranties, so forth and so on? What's your opinion? And I'll chime in with mine as well.
Well, I'm kind of past it. I'm past buying cheap tools.
And why?
And I'll pass that. I will pass that experience on to the audience. Well, because cheap tools,
they're just that. They're cheap.
You get what you pay. You get what you pay for it in many cases. And, if you buy cheap tools, they're not going to do the job. You're going to get really frustrated. And that's not the way you really want to go about it. So,
can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What is the oldest tool you have? Do you know?
I do know. And it is a screwdriver.
And how old is it?
Probably from the 30s.
From the 30s, from the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think that when that tool was made, it was a good quality tool?
It
was.
Yeah,
just say yes.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. But it's kind of funny. It has, what you don't find anymore is a wooden handle screwdriver.
Right.
But it is a, it certainly has
has been tested by time.
Tested by time is for sure.
So the reason that I ask that is that I personally look at my tools. This is my opinion, that my tools are an investment.
Correct.
Okay. And actually, for me, they are actually an asset, meaning they make me money. But even for a homeowner, if they save you money, that effectively makes you money. So in my world, a tool is an asset. So I consider an asset to be something that generates income. When we buy good quality tools, just to this example, I ask about the oldest tool that you have because many of the basic hand tools that we're going to talk about are iron or steel, or they're made of metal, and they're going to last really forever, more or less. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
If you buy a good one,
yes,
it has a really long lifetime. So if you want to look at it from a financial side, if you amortize it out, if you own the thing for 30 years and it costs you $30, you got $1 a year into it, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to think about your tools that way because that's just kind of one of the things I've learned over the years is that you really have to look at your tools as a long-term investment. I kind of was chiding with Preston, who's my wife's son, and he has this set of punches. And I said, well, you bought a good set of punches. I said, the only thing you have to worry about with those punches is losing them or leaving them somewhere.
That's right. That is the biggest thing with simple tools.
Yeah, he'll own those punches for the rest of his life unless he loses them. That's his biggest threat. They're not going to be destroyed. You could drive over them with the car and it wouldn't matter because they're steel. Mm-hmm. So that's that's kind of part of my framework when I come to buying tools because I want to buy tools that are going to last a long time and give me superior service. So with that said, I just wanted to lay that out there that's one of my philosophies. I think it's kind of one of yours too, John. Of course, we do make our livings with our tools.
That's right.
So it's slightly different. But there are a lot of tools out there where you can buy the cheap ones, and they're just that. They're cheap. You can kind of buy middle-of-the-road ones that actually can be really good quality and can last the average homeowner a lifetime. And then you can buy real professional tools, which for a homeowner aren't necessary, but maybe for somebody, if you think about getting into a business, you could buy them. Mm-hmm. So anyway, just wanted to lay that out there.
Right. And I think for the audience is that there's you should look at it, as Larry was saying, is really as an investment. They will last you a lifetime, and good tools, really, it's a good result. Of course, I've got a lot of professional tools because I was an aircraft mechanic for all those years. So I've got a lot of,
he's got a lot of stuff that nobody else has.
Yeah, I got a lot of interesting tools. So
yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So, so anyways.
All right. Well, cool. So basic homeowners, where do we want to start? We want to start with what? How about we start with a hammer? Mm-hmm. So I mean, myself, so hammers are really interesting, right? Because how many different kind of hammers are there? There's a boatload of hammers, right? So we have there's hammers for each individual kind of thing, just depending on the job that you need. Mm-hmm. But I think the average homeowner needs a basic claw type hammer.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Absolutely. You're not going to, for most homeowners, you're not going to need a ball peen hammer right now.
Correct. You don't need a ball peen hammer, but you want this is my opinion, you want a hammer that's not a real small one because it's too light to really drive a big nail, but you want kind of a medium weight hammer, something that feels good in your hand and that has I definitely like a good claw on it because if you have to pull something out, you want a good claw. I like a straight claw myself. A lot of people like a more curved claw. I do more on the framing side, so I like a little bit of a more straight claw. But let's just talk. So, good quality hammer, John. About how much money are you going to pay?
A good quality hammer can be $10 to $30.
Yep, pretty much right on. And you can buy them for less. You can buy them for more. My personal hammer is an S-Twing hammer. It happens to be a 16-ounce framing hammer. It's got a steel handle with rubber on it. Most hammers have wooden handles in most cases. And, of course, my hammer's a little more towards the $30 side than it is the $15 side, but it's also very, very robust. What about warranties? My particular hammer has a lifetime warranty. So,
yeah, and once again, it's all of what you're going to do if you're really going to get into this, and you're really going to start to fix things around your house, and you're going to stay with it. I don't want to digress too much here, but it's buy good stuff. If you're just looking to put something in your kitchen drawer to fix the occasional thing, then it's a little bit different. The knobs on my cabinet just came loose.
Yeah, you don't need to spend a lot of money.
Yeah, so there is some decent, all-in-one kits that you can get, and we can talk about those in a minute. But let's address if you're really going to buy some decent stuff to start off with.
Right. Okay.
So
that pretty much puts hammers to bed.
Yeah.
I think. What about screwdrivers? You got to have a screwdriver.
Yes. Yeah. And so, there's all types of screwdrivers, and there's all kinds of kits that you can buy that have different, tips for the screwdriver. It's those, you can get some really nice deals on it. They're really good quality at the big box stores. And if you're just as the show is, when you're just starting out getting tools, is some of the screwdrivers, and I use them all the time, are the ones that are combination screwdrivers.
Yeah, multi-tip screwdrivers.
Multi-tip screwdrivers that, on one side they're Phillips head, on the other they're common. That's the four-bladed look, the four-bladed screwdriver, and then you've got the flat common screwdriver.
Right, sometimes in multiple sizes.
Correct.
My thing on buying a multi-tip screwdriver is definitely, this is an area where the least expensive one is not a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Buy a little bit better quality one. Buy a name brand. I'm going to just throw out Craftsman because they have a good warranty on them, but there's many, many different kinds of brands that have, the Home Depot brand Husky is good. The Cobalt brand is pretty good as well. But you want to buy a little bit better one on those because these multi-tip screwdrivers, when they tend to strip out, they tend to give you a hard time in trying to get them fixed. So buy a little bit better quality one. You can buy some really cheap ones, really, really cheap ones, and you're going to wish you hadn't on that case. Mm-hmm. And as you know, screwdrivers, of course, you can buy individual bladed screwdrivers, and you would need about 10,000 of them to do all the sizes that are out there. Right. I mean, John, what's the smallest screwdriver you have? It's for the hobby side, right?
Well, I do have very small screwdrivers, but taking apart very little, I was a mechanic, so it was taking apart, down to watches. Yeah. And, all the way up to changing engines on a 727. But it's the kind of thing that, you can get some of these kits that have very fine screwdrivers all the way up. And, you'll be surprised what you can get and what you can get away with. For the average homeowner around doing projects around the house.
What kind of cost on these, John?
Well, again, you're probably looking at the $15 to $30 for a kit, or if you're just looking at regular screwdriver, like a combination screwdriver, like the ones I carry, are probably around $7-8.
Yep.
So anything along that road. So $7 or $8 is going to get you a screwdriver that's got a couple different common tips. They're very easy to change. You flip the thing around. You've got, your Phillips heads in two different sizes, and that's mainly what you're going to find in your home.
Right. So perfect. All right. Next thing, measuring device. Say a tape measure.
Tape measure. Absolutely. You need a tape measure. These can be found at the big box stores. They're relatively inexpensive. Buy a decent tape measure.
Yeah.
Please. You'll reward yourself, and just don't lose it.
Just don't lose it. Well, that's a continuing theme through all of them. What sort of length would you suggest for a beginner? I mean, they come in all lengths, anything from 3 feet out to 40 feet, or out to 100 if you need it, but that's on the outside edge. But what would you say? I mean, I carry a 25-foot one myself.
Plenty.
Yeah. I mean, I think you
Plenty.
need at least 12 feet. You probably need up to 25 feet.
Yeah, plenty.
What kind of cost?
I think they're probably around $10.
Yeah,
10, 15.
10 to 20.
Yeah,
just
$10 to
depending.
$20.
Depends on length. Depends on what it's composed
buy a
of.
decent. If you buy a decent one, you'll be happy. Believe me.
I personally like my iridescent green tape measure, and why is that? Because I can see the stupid thing.
Yeah.
So they come in all colors too, by the way. I mean, if you just go into any of the big stores and you'll see there's rows of them. There's just sometimes it's a little overwhelming. Like why?
Right.
And some of them have very special things. But I personally like a kind of a bright one so I can see it. I also always know where it is, and I personally like it.
Right. Well, usually these are the kind of things that you're using, and then you put down and you go,
where is it? Yeah.
So
it's right next to your pencil.
Right. Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. Where was that?
Behind my ear.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Oh, it's been there all day.
But exactly, and that's it is true because if you notice, Larry, I don't know if you noticed, but my pencils and everything else, I wrap bright orange tape
Bright
and
orange
stuff,
tape around them.
surveyor's tape around them so I can find them because I keep throwing those things around and it's like, wait a minute,
because you set them down and
yeah,
they're gone.
Right. Yeah, they're right in front of you too.
So we're talking about tools. Now we're starting to collect some tools. Do we need something to put them in?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So if you buy, okay, so on the very, very low end, if you're just going to put something in your cabinet drawer, you can get an all-in-one kit.
Right.
And it'll come in a box, a nice case. You can, some of the advanced portions of this stuff will also come in a case too. Okay, that's great. Larry and I both carry, bags or belts, tool belts and tool bags. And you can get these things for, $20. And I use the heck out of it and beat this thing up. And you get them at the big box stores.
But I would suggest that for the average homeowner. I'd say go out and get yourself just a regular toolbox.
Just get a toolbox.
A decent toolbox.
But I would also say, if you're going to start moving your tools around and take it from one side of the house to the other.
Get a tool bag. Because
it won't, what I've found is that they don't beat the heck out of your house when you set them down.
Yep, I agree.
Versus skidding a metal box across your hardwood floor accidentally.
Yeah. Oh, and cost range is going to be, depends on there's a million variables again, but they're going to be in the $10 to $20 range pretty much all day long.
Yeah, and I think I used a flip top box that had 2 drawers on it for a number of years, even professionally, that I could get I get a lot of tools in there, even my ratchets and sockets and those kind of things. And that's something else we can talk about. But, that was a good box, to start off with.
So you need some kind of container, eventually. But I will say this. So we've talked several times about what's our biggest threat to our tools, and it's actually losing them, right?
Yes.
If you have a good toolbox or a good system, so in my tool belt, so I carry a tool belt because I move my tools every single day, so they sit in my belt, and my belt allows me to go on a job and do about 90% of everything I do is done with the tools that are in my belt. I have a place in that belt where I know where everything goes. And if I'm missing something, by visually I can tell. So I'm going to tell our audience to do the same kind of thing. If your toolbox has a screwdriver, a hammer, a tape measure, a pencil, whatever items you're keeping in that, you don't have to keep in a real inventory. But if you keep putting them always in the same place, you'll know if they're there or not. Mm-hmm. So your chances of losing them decline greatly because as you're out on the job site, and you know this, even if you're just working around the house, you tend to set things down. John, have you ever set something down and found it 2 years later because you set it up on top of a cabinet and then you were up there getting something off the cabinet and found it again?
Yeah.
Been there, done that, right?
Christmas presents.
Yeah, Christmas presents. There you go.
In the attic.
In the attic. Surprise. Merry Christmas, honey. Sorry.
But you're right. After a while, you kind of get to the point where you know what goes where. I just will say one thing. Just being a professional was that just when you take your tools and you say, okay, I'm going to be using my tools. Just also tell yourself, I got to put my tools away.
Got to put them away. And clean them.
I got to clean them. I got to take care of them and put them away too. So, if you kind of remind yourself of that way you kind of, when you're using them, you kind of know, well, I got to keep them close. And kind of when I've done using them, I'm starting to put them away.
Yeah.
Just subconsciously.
So they don't go bye-bye.
Right. So they don't go bye-bye and they're not all spread out all over the place. And that's the worst thing.
Yep.
I mean, I feel really good. I just took my whole bag of tools apart and I'm looking at it right now and cleaned it all out. And I restuffed them all back in there. And now I almost know where they all go.
There you go. You almost could find them if you had to. So, all right. So moving on, let's talk about what are some of the I call them supplies, but what are some of the things you need? Some attachment things like duct tape. Do you really need duct tape? Is it really as great as everybody thinks? Zip ties. What sort of things?
Well, I hate to say it, but yeah, duct tape is pretty good stuff.
It's pretty good stuff.
I don't generally like using it. Because it has its place. Okay, it has its place, for emergencies and other things, but it does get sticky.
It gets sticky, gummy. Yeah.
But go out and when you walk down the aisle with the tape, pick yourself up a roll of duct tape, pick yourself up some electrician's tape. That's the black stuff. Lord knows I've gone through a jillion of the rolls of electrical tape that I have never used, and I keep losing that. I don't know what it is about that, but
it's just a curse.
It's a curse.
It's a curse. I'm really big on zip ties, so I really like using zip ties.
Buy a bag of zip ties. They're inexpensive. You can buy bigger ones than you need because you can always clip them.
Yep.
With your pliers and your pair of diagonals. You can clip these things. And,
you can do it with scissors also.
And you're good to go. I will mention one thing I'm looking at right now that we need to talk about, and I'll get back to consumables, is a level.
Got to have a level.
Got to have a level. So just, folks, if you want good results, put things on the wall level. And you won't be
square
and square, right?
Which level and square generally are together,
right? Right. So,
we'll get to that later.
But from the consumable side, the tapes.
What about glue and caulk?
Nothing wrong with buying some glue and caulk.
All have their uses.
They all have their uses.
Yeah.
There's, you're going to wind up running across, broken door frames, broken, occasionally, things like that, separate. A decent little bottle of wood glue is a good thing to have, and along with that is a tube of caulk.
Yeah, caulk is kind of a how would we call it? It does a wonderful number of different things. Number one, it helps make your house more energy efficient. It also, like when you're painting and things, it covers up mistakes, right? So if you make a little mistake, you're driving a screw and you drive your screwdriver into the wall. Not that that's ever happened, every other day.
Right.
You just take a little caulk and you just fill in the little divot that you made and you cover it up. Or if you're attaching something and you want to paint it, you trim it up. If you watch a painter, they always have painter's caulk, which is what they use it for. So, got to have caulk. So, what else? Any other consumables? I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean that's really the bulk of it to really just really get started. And folks, you can get, the caulk in big tubes. You don't have to get a big caulking gun and all that kind of stuff at this point. But, some of it, some of the caulk comes in small.
Comes in little squeeze bottles.
Yeah, a little squeeze, like toothpaste size,
right.
stuff. And but have some of this kind of stuff around because as Larry just mentioned, if you want to reattach things that have broken, or you see some molding that's kind of separating a little bit, and it happens every day. Every day, you can use that caulk to put in there, and wipe off and make a nice, neat little repair, and you're looking good again.
You're looking good. So one other thing here that we're talking about, got to have some kind of a flashlight.
Yes, absolutely. Get a flashlight.
There's a bazillion choices. We really won't discuss it too much because there's so many choices. But power goes out, or you're in that dark corner. You're working on whatever. Everybody's been in that dark corner working on something. You need a little extra light. And I know for me, in my advanced age, and with my eyes getting as bad as they are, I need it more and more.
Absolutely, and I will say that, and I'll kind of short circuit some thought processes out there. Is what, after all these years of being a professional mechanic, that one of the flashlight that my go-to flashlight of choice now is my headlamp. I have a headlamp that I use as a flashlight, but it's a way to free up both my hands so I can work.
Yeah.
Now I'm not going to walk around, the grocery store with my headlamp and, hey, cart this guy, take this guy away. But, it is a fantastic. They have some great little headlamps now. When I was a professional mechanic, we had to build our own out of flashlights and big things, and it was a wow.
Just a side note,
you look like a coal miner.
Yeah. Side note: LED technology has really changed lighting.
But that's exactly
and so
right.
LED lighting is just awesome as far as the new ability for flashlights is unbelievable. And just buy an LED flashlight because they're awesome. They're just awesome. But anyway.
Absolutely. This thing, though, is just it's a great thing because I use it as a hand flashlight, and I also, when I have to have both my hands free and I'm working on something, I put that thing around my head, and boom, you're good to go. So that's just a little thought
All right.
for those folks out there.
What about pliers?
Absolutely. Get some pliers and get some adjustable pliers. And when you go to the store, you'll find adjustable pliers. They, go from very small, and they just kind of.
And you mentioned size. So there's four things I think of when I think of pliers. Okay, so there's regular adjustable pliers. There's channel lock type style pliers. So sliding
channel locks,
sliding lock.
That's what I'm talking about.
It.
Adjustable, yeah.
Needle nose pliers.
Right.
So picking up small things, and they have what's called a side cutter. Most of them have a side cutter function where you can cut wire with them, and then a diagonal pair of pliers as well. Diagonal cutting pliers. Right. So those are for cutting wire and basically cutting wire mostly is what you use them for. But cutting anything really, but they'll cut zip ties really well.
Right.
But those are the four things that I think of. What kind of cost are we talking about? If you're going to buy, you can buy kits of all four of those. They're going to be $40 to $50.
Yes.
About,
really
about
nice
$10
ones. Yeah. Nice ones. Probably somewhere around there.
Yep. And great varieties of uses and things like that
absolutely.
for doing various jobs. Knife.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. Razor knives, okay, is generally when you talk about, if you're talking about razor knives, those kind of
utility
knives. Utility knives. Buy a good one. Good ones have good blades. You won't be disappointed. And as we all know, dull knives are dangerous knives.
True.
So you want to get some good. You want to get a good sharp knife.
One thing that I've noticed is, so these utility blades, you can change the blades, right?
Right.
You want a good one because the good ones, the blades don't slip out of the mount.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. And that because, like I said, dull knives or anything like that is a dangerous.
It's dangerous. They're very sharp, incredibly sharp, right? If they're new, if they're dull, they're incredibly dull, which means they're going to rip your skin. But anyway, when they're really sharp, they're of course razor sharp. But I've just found that if you get a little better quality one, at least middle of the road one, the way that the blade actually mounts is much better than it is in the less expensive ones. And I've just had, you've been cutting, right, and pulled the blade right out of the knife handle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And
it's really frustrating.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. It drives me crazy. So that's that. But there's plenty of choices out there. They're just called box cutters or whatever you want. But they're going to run anywhere from $5 to $10, maybe $15 if you go to the top side. John, what about, do they need a putty knife?
Yes.
Got to have a putty knife.
Got to have a putty knife. You're going to be going in and out of all kinds of crazy little places with things like that to pry things apart, to scrape things.
Yeah, get a stiffer bladed one to start.
Yep.
To start, they come soft and they come stiff. If you buy a stiff blade, it acts as a scraper as well, so you can actually scrape with it. And then probably the last thing we need to talk about. Did we talk about adjustable wrenches?
No, we didn't. But that is another thing that you'll want to pick up is an adjustable wrench. They're to me, I always knew them as Crescent wrenches.
That's the brand.
That was a brand.
But they basically are wrenches that'll change size.
Yeah.
So you don't have to buy one specific one. You can buy multiples. And there's plenty of brands and sizes to choose from. Go with a kind of a smaller to medium sized one to start off with, because if you need a really big one, you're going to break things. If it's too big, you're going to put too much pressure on things and you'll break them, and that's not a good thing. And the very last thing, I think, for the intermediate, you need some kind of a saw.
Yes. Get yourself a small little box saw that you can cut some wood, something maybe even up to a 2x4 with.
Correct. All right. That finishes off this beginner section of tools, and we will have more for you coming up in the next week.
From the email bag at questions@handymanprosradioshow.com, we received an email from T. Edison. He's got some lighting questions. I wonder if T. Edison.
T, huh?
Can I call you Tom?
Maybe.
Okay.
Just don't call me late for supper.
Yeah. And he asked, hey, whatever happened to those incandescent bulbs that were just wonderful? And I need to buy some new bulbs. What should I be considering?
Well, it might have taken you a couple of thousand times to figure it out, Mr. T, but let's talk about modern lighting. Yeah, we set this one up. So anyway, modern lighting. So, you still can buy incandescent bulbs, right, John?
Yes.
Incandescent bulbs are the old style that get really hot, basically, if you want to talk about it. They get hot. You put your hand on them. They burn. And every once in a while, you turn the light switch on and pop, away they go. They're done, right?
Yep.
So, but modern lighting is pretty magnificent, really, actually, when we get right down to it. There's a couple of different options. You still can do an incandescent. Do they still make CFL bulbs or not?
Boy, I sure hope not.
Yep. Compact fluorescent light bulbs, which are kind of the curly Q ones.
Awful.
And they were, pretty bad. We're not really going to discuss those because I believe that they're really on their way out. There's a lot of hazardous materials concerns and things like that with them. To be honest, if you have them in your house, when they finally do quit, call
the hazmat.
Yeah, we'll not tell you what to do. But
just
the trash can and quickly
just dispose of properly. Let's leave it there.
Yes, dispose of properly. But modern lighting is largely now is becoming LED lighting, and LED lighting is really it's magnificent technology.
Yeah, it is great.
The biggest thing that I think the hardest thing for people to understand about LED lighting is basically the, quote, lumens, as it's called, or the brightness of what the LEDs look like. And so I would tell you to go out and actually, most places now have little test lights, and they actually show you what they actually look like. And buy a light that you think is going to work. My big thing with LED lighting, which I really love, is I now buy the biggest number of lumens that I can get, meaning the brightest light that I can get. And now I basically take and put dimmer switches on all my lighting so I can customize my lighting at the house. Just make sure your bulbs are dimmable, as they say, because some LEDs are and some LEDs aren't. But that's just how I go about it. John, how do you do light bulbs?
Well, from an LED perspective, I think there's a couple of things to take a look at. One is, yes, it's great to have the really bright bulbs, but there's a couple of things that do happen. But you're right. You have to have dimmers, and you really need to have special dimmers for LED bulbs versus some of the older dimmers for incandescent bulbs.
Yes.
And we won't get into why. That's just
it's an electronic thing.
It has to. It really does matter. But anyways. It's really I think it's the Kelvin level of the bulb itself. So they have daylight bulbs and warm white bulbs.
Correct.
And that's kind of a difference. I put the daylight bulbs in my garage. Fantastic. Okay. they're great. In a reading lamp, not so much.
Oh, it is. What are you talking about? It's like being interrogated.
Yeah.
You have ways of making you talk.
Yeah. In a James Bond movie in a Russian stairwell somewhere. It's like, but so it is one of the considerations. I will say that I was not high on the fact that incandescent bulbs were going away, because you could really dim them down to a really cool
Very
glow.
light, yes.
But what has happened in the last couple of years is these things have really come a long way.
The
so
LEDs,
the dimmers,
yeah.
and I even have them on some of the older dimmers, and they still will go down, and not almost all that way, but very close. And I'm really, really happy with them. So like Larry was saying, is that when you go to the big box stores, and they'll have a little display case that you can play with the dimmers, and there is a difference in bulbs. Some of them are very cheap. Some of them are a little bit more expensive.
But all in all, in the past 5 years, they've come way down in price.
They've come way down in price. And I have now as floodlights outside,
Yep.
lighting my landscape and things like that.
They're
great.
And they last how long?
They'll last a long time.
Yeah,
a
really
long time until a tree falls on them.
And then one of the other great advantages to LED is just the energy savings. They really you will notice it. It's actually noticeable, and they're not as hot.
Right.
Right. They're not hot at all, actually.
No. And you can really string a bunch of them together on a circuit, and they're really they've really come a long way.
So, all right, Mr. T, we hope that answers your questions. You rascal, you.
Yep. On to the next experiment.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this podcast and have derived some value from it, here's 4 things you can do. 1, tell your friends about this podcast. 2, hit subscribe on your podcast player. While you're there, leave us a review. 3, subscribe to our newsletter by going to handymanprosradioshow.com and click on the subscribe button. We'll inform you of upcoming events, shows, and give you actionable tips for maintaining your home and property. And 4, send us an email with your questions to questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. That's handymanprosradioshow.com. That's our show for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.